Here's what's coming up on this week's Swipe. Twitter's CEO tells us there is a middle ground in the row over encryption. I witnessed the augmented reality platform billed as the future of surgery. And in our games review, we've got an upcoming release nostalgia fans are going to love. Welcome to Swipe from a hospital this week. And once you see why we're here, you could say we're in two hospitals, and it's got nothing to do with Jack Dorsey was in London this week, where Tom got to catch up with him about one of his other ventures, Square, and a key topic of the moment, security.
The businesses of the future, like this laser cutting and 3D printing lab in central London, rely on a networked world. Jack Dorsey is the chief executive of both Twitter and of Square, a mobile payments company launching in the UK. Square's systems use encryption to keep customers and businesses' financial information safe. After the Westminster attack, Home Secretary Amber Rudd called on companies, including WhatsApp, to give government access to encrypted services. Dorsey said that a compromise with Silicon Valley is possible.
I think there's an absolute middle ground. I think it really has to be measured by the individual and how they're using it. I think, as we talk about security, we also need to talk about accountability and about transparency and how things work. We, at Square, we're very proactive about our outreach to government agencies to make sure that we ensure more safety across the board. And encryption is a really, really important part of that.
Do you think Twitter does a good enough job of removing extremist terrorist content?
I think we've definitely led and that's where using more technologies like machine learning can really help. But I think Twitter has a pretty great record in this regard. But we're always looking to make sure that we have the right partnership with the government to understand what the needs are and to really push.
The other problem which you've highlighted is abuse on the platform. Is that an approach that can be helped by technology as well?
Oh, absolutely. We made safety the number one priority as a company on the platform. And a lot of that has to do with how we've applied technology. And we're giving people controls to report any sort of targeted harassment or abuse.
Companies like Square and Twitter have been rushing into the future. More and more, government wants to apply the brakes. Tom Cheshire, Sky News.
Stay with us, still to come. We'll be joining a patient as he goes for surgery, but there's a tech twist. It's coming right up after a roundup of this week's tech news. Samsung's launched its latest flagship smartphone with a bigger screen and no physical home button. The South Korean tech giant's hoping the S8 can help rebuild its reputation after the exploding phones fiasco last year, when battery problems led to a withdrawal of the Note 7. The smart home systems competition is intensifying. Google's announced it's due to launch its contender in the UK on April the 6th. Google Home is a voice-controlled smart speaker that will rival Amazon's Echo. And a man paralysed for 8 years has had his arm and hand brought back to life with the help of thought control technology. Scientists planted 2 electrodes in Bill Koshevar's brain to record activity and generate signals to stimulate his muscles. Stick around for our games review in just a few minutes. We've got what could be the hardest game you've ever played. Before that, though, let me explain why I'm now in scrubs. You see, we're at Watford General Hospital with a patient who's about to have a skin cancer operation, but the surgeon leading his operation isn't here. He's at another hospital over 15 miles away. Amir, hello.
Hello.
We don't often see tablets in operating theatres. What are you about to do?
You're going to have an operation on our lovely patient, Edward. You're going to remove a skin cancer from his face. And as this will result in a defect on his face, we have to design a flap, which is an operation to move some of the tissues on his face to go into the defect, to close it.
This tablet will live stream the whole procedure to another surgeon with specific expertise in this kind of operation.
And this is an interactive system where he can see what I can see and mark the operation and plan the surgery.
Over at London's Royal Free Hospital, consultant Mr Masabi is standing by, ready to lead the surgery.
Yes. Hello, Mr Masabi. Can you hear us?
Hi, Amir. Yes, I can.
I think our setup is ready now.
Edward, how are you feeling?
Good.
You're not at all nervous that your surgeon leading the operation is more than 15 miles away?
No. Just glad to get it done, really.
If you don't mind, start marking the flaps on the patient's face, and then we can start performing the operation on this side.
Okay, if you could magnify a little bit for me, to get closer to the lesion. This is my pen, which I'm going to bring in. This is the area of the cancer which we're going to remove, which leaves a hole, obviously, which we can't leave like that.
Okay, so you're going to take skin from the forehead to cover the area where you've removed. Now that you've got the markings drawn, are you going to follow those to do the surgery?
Yes.
The augmented reality system was created by Proximie, a tech company from the Middle East, supported by the UK-Lebanon Tech Hub.
Yeah, Amir, I can see that. It's perfect.
The platform was first used in war zones.
In areas when there is obviously conflict and the local expertise isn't available, this remote directing of medical care can be life-saving.
Now it's helping train students at the Royal Free, and it's claimed it has the potential to speed up the NHS referral system, cutting the time it takes to get to see a specialist. So you could have a patient come in with a broken leg.
Yep.
You could take a photo of it.
Photo or video if I wanted to as well, yeah.
And then using this, send it to the right specialist.
Yes.
Mr. Wasabi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
How would you change this technology to make it better?
So the next level of improvement is going to be a 3D camera, which will improve the depth of the vision.
Do you feel like
You're in the room with us?
I do, because I can see it very clearly. I can see his action, and this is what I would do in real life.
the technology is already being used in a handful of other countries, but Proximie's goal now is to catch on with more hospitals in the UK. The future of surgery, what do you think? Tell us on Twitter @SkyNewsSwipe. Time now for video games, and Simon has picked this week's contenders.
Dark Souls 3 The Ring City is the last piece of downloadable content for Dark Souls 3. As the name suggests, it takes you to a new area, the Ring City, where you get new armour, new weapons, new clothing, and most importantly, new bosses. Now, if you've never been into Dark Souls before, the Ring City isn't going to change your opinion of it because it's still incredibly hard. You get thrown down in the Ring City, which, as the game itself tells you, is meant to be at World's End, which ties into the Dark Souls aesthetic, and from there, you just got to try and survive. And it's a great downloadable package, and it does everything you'd expect from a piece of content related to Dark Souls 3. And because developer From Software has kind of hinted this may be the last thing we ever see from the Dark Souls series, if you love it, you definitely want to check it out. Yooka-Laylee is the first title from Playtonic Games, and the reason you should be so excited about it is because the developers basically reached into 1998, grabbed Banjo-Kazooie, and just threw it into 2017. And that's why in Yooka-Laylee, you play as a bat and a chameleon, and all you're asked to do is take down a giant bee that stole some pages from a magical book. Now, as you can tell straight away, it doesn't take itself too seriously at all, but that means you're not meant to take it seriously at all either. It's the perfect game for sitting down with on a Sunday afternoon, doing some open world 3D platforming, partaking in some mini games, and when you fancy it, just jumping on an enemy's head. You don't even kill them. They just faint, because the whole point is it meant to be fun for all the family. And in a video game world where mostly we're asked to shoot things or go on epic adventures, it's a welcome breath of fresh air. Has-Been Heroes by Frozen Byte Games, that's coming out on the PS4, Xbox One, PC and Nintendo Switch, seems on paper to be a nice little quirky game. As the title suggests, you do play some Has-Been Heroes who have seen better days, because today they've been reduced to babysitting the King's two princesses, and by that I mean they have to take them to school and make sure they get to said school safely. Now, that sounds like it should be fun, and that sounds like it should be something anybody can just sit down with and enjoy. But that's not the case, because this very may well be the hardest game you've ever played in your life. Falling into the roguelike genre, which means it mixes turn-based strategy with real-based strategy, all you're ever really asked to do is take your three characters and try and defeat the enemies put in front of you. The problem is, the enemies put in front of you are harder than steel, and even within the first hour, you're going to be dying and struggling and trying to figure out what's going on. I would recommend it though if you enjoy your video games that have a huge test to them, or you just like a challenge. Otherwise, probably best leave this be, especially if you don't have a lot of patience.
Well, that's it for this week's show, and don't forget, you can watch any of our episodes on demand in all the usual places. I'll be back next week. I hope you can join us then too. Bye-bye.